I waited 38 years to be able to retire, and the anticipation was incredible. What I didn't know was how hard the transition was going to be.
We both ended our amazing careers on the same Friday. And while that weekend was really fun and we celebrated a lot, when Monday came along, we found ourselves kind of looking at each other with a bit of fear and anxiety.
Yeah, it was strange because while we had this feeling of freedom, freedom from the responsibilities, freedom from what became for me a mundane work life, it felt good, but then it hit us. What were we going to do all day?
Right.
Not only all day, but that week, that month, that year, and 30 more years of this. We needed a little bit more than, hey, can I have another cup of coffee?
We really lamented that morning about the hundreds of relationships that we had left behind. In our minds, very close friends that we had during our work were going to last us a lifetime.
Sure, yeah.
What we found out very quickly was that those friendships really existed because of our business interaction. They really became situational.
They did. And what happened was this feeling of overnight, Jody and I became irrelevant.
I never said that about myself.
Well, no, but to the company we did because we weren't there anymore.
Okay.
You're never irrelevant. I mean, you're about as relevant as they get. But our daily routine of going to work, solving problems for others, building our business, and feeling fulfilled, that was gone. It was over.
Yeah, for my entire career, and probably for most of yours, my identity, at least part of it, really became, my title, my position, where I fit in the corporate structure as one of the leading women at our dominantly male organization. My email, my phone, my
your fancy corner office.
Yeah. With all the windows. All of that was tied to my corporate identity. And on that Monday, I realized I didn't have any of that left.
No, it's gone. We had to reinvent ourselves. I had sold my companies 7 years earlier and now worked for a large public company.
Which was a big transition.
It was a big transition.
Right.
So I had reinvented myself once already.
So you had practice.
I had some practice, so I had a leg up on you.
You did.
But what I realized was this was going to be a lot harder.
Definitely.
Actually, stepping away from work completely was hard.
And today we're going to share with you some of the steps that we took and some of the strategies that also might work for you if you're going through this or about to go through it, so you can prepare ahead of time.
Right.
So why don't we start with the steps? The first step is one to really relish, and that's how you reflect on how far you've come. Spending time looking at everything you've accomplished and really going through the highlights of your career.
Yeah, we did this together, and we still do it when we think back, but all of my successes, all of my failures, think of all the teammates that you probably impacted over your entire career.
Yeah, and the difference you made to clients or customers and the contributions that you gave and, quite frankly, some of the sacrifices that you made over the years.
So this is really an important step in letting go of your old identity, because you've got to make sure that you give yourself credit for everything that you've done. My career was 38 years. You don't just wrap that up in a bow and say, oh, that was fun. You really should spend time on this, and we both do.
We do, and quite frankly, men are a little better at reflecting on successes than women are. So this was...
Is that because we're more successful?
Absolutely not.
No.
But it's because you find success in almost everything that you do.
That's right.
So, it's a step. So for the women out there, I would say really spend the time to go through that step number one.
Yeah.
Step number two, it's really important to understand how transition works. And, there were two books that really impacted us on this step and in this area.
Two books that I
highly recommend.
Two books that I wish we had read years ago.
Right. The first is By Way of Transition by William Bridges. And it's a fabulous book, not a big book, not necessarily
easy to read.
Yeah, not a heavy read, but something that is super impactful. And the second one is Life is in the Transitions by Bruce Feiler. And we'll drop those in the notes below, but we highly recommend whether you're in a transition or you have one heading towards you.
Well, the big thing is life is filled with transitions. You go back to when you went from elementary school to middle school to high school to college to your career and all the other jobs. There's all these transitions. Right. So these books are helpful in so many ways. Now, what we learned was there's 3 phases of a transition. So the first one is the ending, which is letting go of the old way. Then there's the middle or the neutral zone where you haven't quite figured out who you're going to be when
it's
you
really
grow
chaos.
up. And it's chaos.
Right.
It is absolute chaos. Regret, remorse, confusion. And you have all these feelings that you have to recognize and accept. But the way to get out of the neutral zone or the middle zone, the third phase, is the new beginning. And we're going to talk more about that in future videos. But there's 3 phases, letting go of the old, the middle or neutral zone, and the new beginning, are really helpful as you go through transitions in your life, particularly this one.
And it's important, sometimes even just to label where you are, right? So if you label where you are, you can digest it a little bit easier. So good of you to point that out.
Yeah, thank you, Jody.
For now, what you have to remember is transitions are real. And William Bridges puts it really well in his book when he says, and think about this, people don't resist change. What we resist is transition.
That's such a good quote.
It really is.
Because I've always been a big pro-change guy, but this transition piece, it's a hard process to get through the change. People's careers end for many different reasons, and you have to find a way to get through these 3 phases. Jody decided for herself it was time to retire on her terms. Now, I had sold my company, and really there was no turning back.
So it's important then to go to this step number 3 that we went to, which is begin to reimagine your retirement. Right. Both Mark and I had traditional retirement in our mind on the day that we left. We saw ourselves sitting back, taking it easy, and frankly doing nothing after raising a family and living, right. 2 hectic careers. But the year before we retired, we tried that lifestyle a little bit. We dipped our toe in.
We did more than dip our toe.
we traveled to many different countries. We entertained at our vacation homes. We started to party a little bit like rock stars, and we played a lot of golf.
And the thing that we found out is this taste of this traditional retirement, it didn't take long for us to realize it was completely unsustainable. I mean, we were gaining weight, we were feeling unhealthy, we were both eating too much and clearly drinking too much alcohol.
And it was during that summer that we realized that we were grateful for this idea of a retirement transformed, something totally different. So we began to pour ourselves into this. And it was our version of wisdom sharing, really, and really to help others in the same boat. And we knew we were going to create a retirement transformed.
We did. And that leads us into the 4th step, is to really find a way to embrace some work, volunteer, paid, or otherwise, that's going to align with your strengths and values. Again, we refer to this in our online course as wisdom sharing. We've got 5 core pillars: physical wellness, mental wellness, relationship, spouse-partner relationship, and wisdom sharing. And this is a way to give back, a way to help others, and building your legacy beyond your career highlights, right, and the financial impact that you can leave behind.
And don't get us wrong, we still play golf and travel and carve out really fun family experiences, and we still entertain.
Yeah.
We don't eat and drink quite as much as we did during that one period. So, with a mindfulness around the 5 pillars and physical wellness and mental wellness being part of it, we changed a few things.
We did, but this whole business that we're running now, it just keeps us motivated and gives us reason to get up every single day. But, and we're doing more than this. So like others, we don't spend 40 hours or 60 or 80 hours a week on this. We do as much as we feel we need to do. But we're the couple that have a hard time saying no So we're actually doing more than just this.
Yeah, but we also are doing more than just this in areas that really add value to ourselves.
Right.
So we're both mentoring college students, and we have been during this last year, and we're helping to prepare them for the world they're about to enter with, some non-curriculum based perspective.
Right.
And we also both serve on some nonprofit boards, which we highly recommend.
Yeah, I went back to my university that I studied at for college, and it's only 45 minutes away, not even that. And I hadn't really been a good donor, a good supporter, but they're
Right.
right in our backyard. And now I'm feeling so grateful for the education that I got from that school, that we're both very involved in that school.
We
And it's
are.
fun to be involved in a school. We might teach a little bit. I know we do a lot of mentoring, and we talk to we're not doing a course yet, but we
No.
may end up teaching a course, which would be fun. Now, this idea of this third phase of life or retirement, it's never too early to start planning. I mean, we're trying to give you some information here to help you with that, because this is, for us, it's 30 more years. So you
Right.
really want to make sure that you plan something well for yourself.
And think about these 4 steps for yourself. With some work and some effort on your part, you can build the most amazing and fulfilling life in this phase as you possibly can.
So if you enjoyed this, do us a favor, please hit like, share it with your friends, and also please subscribe by clicking the subscribe button so you get notification of our weekly videos that come out.
And finally, join our free Facebook community. The link is in the notes below.
Thanks for listening today. We look forward to being with you again soon.